U.S. President Barack Obama did speak about this and said he understands the frustrations of those taking part in Occupy Wall Street.
He's a part of why these frustrations are here.
Now that you see that this is coming to fruition, what makes the momentum actually affect the U.S. system? Aside from the occupations, aside from the visuals, what do people need to do?
Like I said before, these people understand the language of money. When we start costing them money, when we start bleeding them down, that's when they get the message. That's when they get it through their heads. Oh my God. No, they've discovered the magic way to deal with us all. The problem here being is that I see a lot of potential. I see potential that needs to be harnessed. I see people that, I understand the reason they haven't elected leaders, but I think that there should be more spokespeople that go out and have the actual core message of this group, that realize that the corruption that has existed in this system, we can't just completely throw on Republicans. Obviously, Democrats have to carry their fair share. But I think when people look at this nation, they see Republicans completely in the hands of corporations, Democrats pandering to them nonstop. We see them also involved now through the president as part of expanding wars, expanding occupations, not standing up for human rights, being blind about several global issues that are important to people here because they reflect on our democracy. What we do outside of America defines our democracy here. If it's only democracy for people in America, and we say, oh, you know what? Torture is illegal inside America, but it's okay for us to torture people outside of America, then really what's the standard that we're setting here?
I've seen a lot of people online suggest that this movement, if they were to take some action, should go so far as to either pull their money out of banks or stop using credit cards. I'm not promoting any ideas here while asking you this question, but it is something that has been suggested. Do you think that...
I think the second idea is a lot better than the first
one.
Stop
using credit cards.
I think even though we have to have a cohesive strategy to pull this together, I think that there's a lot of real brainstorming that needs to happen, because if we make one move, we need to be focused on what moves will be made against us. This is a chess game, just like the United States chess game in the Middle East, where they're willing to give up a few pawns, but what they really want is pieces. They're willing to trade a few lame duck presidents, because what they really want is the main characters out of the building. They're willing to trade the pawn, Bengali. Get out of here, he's a pawn, right? The other guy used to be a player, Mubarak, became a pawn. What do they want? The bishop, Gaddafi, gone. Now, they want the queen, Iran, out of there. It's a huge chess game, and don't think that they're not playing that here either. We have to not only be focused on what the next move, but what the reaction to what their reaction of our next move is. We have to think ahead of the game. Which is why I said there should be more brainstorming sessions here, and I'm not so sure if they should always be in public, because I think, honestly, that we're not the only ones watching this. We'd be a fool to think that there aren't people involved here or around this area that aren't sleeper cells or agents. That's not me being paranoid. That's just the truth. The first black person to ever work for any Secret Service agency was Agent 800. His job was to infiltrate the movement of Marcus Garvey. If they were thinking like that back then, why wouldn't they be thinking like that here? And I think what's most important is that we don't get frustrated or angry or upset or lack the patience to be able to deal with this movement.
What do you think the difference is between the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party? Because there's been a lot of comparisons made between...
Okay. When people talk about the Tea Party, they think that they're a reaction to Obama. I say that this is a great mistake. The Tea Party's reaction is against its own party first. It's against the Republicans. Who were their first enemies? Before you can actually get to an election, you have to run in a primary. Who were their first enemies? Republicans that they didn't think were far enough to the right. They didn't think that their values were conservative enough, so they put them on the chopping block to show everybody out there, we are willing to get rid of our own if you do not come back home. And this is your home now. That's the difference. We're not willing to just attack people at random. We're willing to sit down and have discussions with people before we take it to that degree. They were straight out the bank, no, we're going for the jugular. Part of that, people think because we organized here and people were here, that we're just willing to politically, savagely maul anybody. It's not the case. We want to have discussions with individuals who are in charge of things. I would say this is a more all-encompassing movement.
Absolutely.
This is libertarians, this is independents, this is some Democrats, this is some Republicans, more Democrats obviously than Republicans, but because we're asking questions about foreign policy, because I don't think the majority of people here believe that a woman who's the victim of rape or incest should be forced to have a child, and we don't believe that government has the right to have all of these private meetings behind our back about what we need to do. There was a sign out here that said, you know, police officers, you're one bounce check away from being out here with the rest of us too. Look, a lot of people, they're angry, they're screaming at cops, but you have to understand, they're just working class individuals. Who's their boss? The mayor. The mayor's getting money with Wall Street. He's closer to Wall Street than America's to Israel. You know what I mean? That's his homies. Those are his peoples. When they die, he pours out a little liquor for them. You know? He shows up at all their birthday parties. He's probably godfather to some of their children. These people, they're like an American aristocracy. So when he says something to the police commissioner says something to the white shirts, and the white shirts kick down to the soldiers, it's similar to what we see in the most brutal parts of the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan. The most brutal parts of that war. Soldiers held accountable for terrible things that have happened within the confines of the war, but no officers, no generals, nobody that implemented these policies, nobody that said, hey, you know what? Take him into the back and cut his hands off until he tells me what I want to hear. Or rape her till she can't stand, until she gives us the information that we want. But that's only attributed to the contractors, to the soldiers, not to the upper levels, not to the CIA memos, not to the people that wrote that. Which is why, when I look at cops, there's a certain amount of cynicism that I have when people say, oh, they're all evil, they're all wicked. No, they're not evil, they're all wicked. They're people that are innocently following orders, and if they don't follow orders, they'll lose their job. Like the sign said, they're one bounce check for being right here with the rest of us, too. And as soon as they realize that, and I think that's also a big difference between this movement and between the Arab Spring movements. The difference is that in the Arab Spring, there was a concentrated force of security forces, whether it be military or National Guard, that decided to join with the movement. Because those were their people. They were literally saying, wow, these are the people that I'm being told by my government that I have to go to war with other countries to protect. And yet, now, I'm being told to attack and kill the same people? At some point, everybody has to question what they're doing and why they're even here. What they're doing at their job. If they're being expressive of their democracy. And a greater question, what did they ever really do to be considered an American? Did you fall out of a pussy in New York or New Jersey or Kansas? That's why you're an American? Did you ever stand up for your human rights and your civil rights? Did you ever question a government that's trying to infringe on your civil liberties? Did you ever try to reform a government that's done nothing but leech this country dry? Stealing from people constantly? You know, in 2008, this country was ready to go up in arms. Obama was not the great unifier, he was the great pacifier. He came in here and said, no, it's going to be okay. I'm going to take care of all this. Yeah, he took care of all of it. And this is not hatred towards him. This is not a denigration of him as a man. But he knows the system he has to stand up for because he's tied to it too. Like Bloomberg is tied to Wall Street. If people come here from the opposition, people have consistently been a part of taking advantage of the people that are here, that are upset at what we're doing because it exposes what they've been doing this whole time, which exposes the corruption behind closed doors, then we know we're on the right path. And a greater question, what did they ever really do to be considered an American? Did you fall out of a pussy in New York or New Jersey or Kansas? That's why you're an American? Did you ever stand up for your human rights and your civil rights? Did you ever question a government that's trying to infringe on your civil liberties? Did you ever try to reform a government that's done nothing but leech this country dry? Stealing from people constantly? We're on the right path.